Okay, I will call this 2025 Evergreen, Indiana Annual Council Meeting to order. It is 2:02 p.m. on April 9th, 2025.
You. So we will start with the agenda. I have it squished up on the screen here, but there should be a link in the chat for that if you would like to see it in a more readable fashion. But we will need a motion, Brandy, to approve the agenda.
This is
All right.
Krista. This is Krista. So moved.
All
I move
right.
we approve the
Krista
agenda.
has moved to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
And
Someone? Anyone?
anyone can uh, motion or second because this is our council meeting, so each library has a representative.
I'll second Mara Honeywell, West Lafayette.
That's fine.
All right. Krista Ledbetter motion and Mara Honeywell seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. So we will move on to the introduction and remarks.
Wonderful. So we have today Jake Spear, the Indiana State Librarian, and Brandy Graves, who is the Executive Committee Chair. They're both going to have a few words for you, but we'll start with Jake.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real honor to address this annual meeting. Evergreen, Indiana is the premier program in the state of Indiana for library services, and it's a real honor just to be part of the meeting today. My involvement goes all the way back to the beginning. I wasn't that involved, but from the very beginning, and to watch it grow to where it is now and continue to grow is really amazing to see. And I'm very confident in the future of Evergreen, Indiana. I know that there's been a lot of news about the state library budget and potentially the federal budget, but Evergreen, Indiana is a top priority, and no matter what happens with our budget or other budgets, we will make sure that it is thriving into the future. We have so many great volunteers, board members, and staff members that are all make this happen. And I'm just very confident about the future of the program. So thank you for having me on today. And I look forward to hearing Brandy.
Great. Thanks, Jake. All right, Brandy.
Well, Jake said a lot of wonderful things. I am Brandy Graves. I'm the director at Shelby County Public Library. We joined Evergreen in 2012, so it's in May of 2012, so we're almost going into 13 years. I have been part of the executive committee. I think this is my second time around, not the second term in a row, but my second time around. I've also been on the patron services committee. There are a multitude of libraries in Evergreen. We have many access to shared resources. And one of my favorite things is the community of shared minds for resources and answers. And while it is beneficial for Evergreen, it is also connected to so many different network of librarians for other types of resources as well. So that has been so enjoyable for myself as well. All right, I'm going to turn it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Jake and Brandy. I am Courtney Brown. I'm the director of the consortium. I am fairly new in this position. I have been here for just under a year. So for those of you that don't know me, I do want to introduce myself. I've been in this director position since May of last year. Before coming to Evergreen, Indiana, I was a regional coordinator with the Indiana State Library's Professional Development Office for 8 years. And one of my jobs in that role was the Evergreen liaison for the department. So you may have seen me around at committee meetings or conferences. I served on the Patron Services Committee at one point in my very, very, very early days in the Professional Development Office. I even did some of the Evergreen training. Before I came to the state library, I was at the Plainfield Public Library for 6 years, first as their teen librarian and then their youth services manager. And Plainfield is an Evergreen library. So I actually started my journey with Evergreen back in 2010. So I've worked with Evergreen for a really long time. This is just kind of my first time working on the back end of it. But I do want to say thank you to everyone I've talked to or come in contact with this past almost year. This job has a pretty steep learning curve. with lots of moving parts, and everyone has been wonderful just at helping me and giving me grace as I learn this position. So thank you. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very happy to be working with Evergreen, Indiana. So at this point in the meeting, we would approve minutes from last year's council meeting, but for some reason, the meeting wasn't recorded or saved, and there were no minutes. So that was a mystery meeting. It happened, allegedly. So we are recording this meeting. We will get minutes. We'll do better moving forward. Okay, I want to start with a few acknowledgements. The Evergreen, Indiana admin team is a very small but mighty team. We are just 3.5 people, and I want to acknowledge them for all the hard work that they do. So first we have Britta Dorsey, the support and training administrator. Britta does all of the training for the consortium. She's the queen of the Aspen Discovery Layer, and her other duties as assigned list is incredibly long. She does a lot for the consortium. And she's also been really helpful to me as I transitioned into this position. There's no way I would be as far along as I am without her help. Kristen Worstel is our help desk support and database analyst. If you've ever submitted a ticket in the last couple of years, you've probably worked with Kristen. She's a more behind the scenes person. You may never see her face, but she is in the back helping everybody out. Jeremy Murray is our quote unquote part-time person, which just means he splits his job with Evergreen Indiana tasks as our system administrator and general Indiana State Library tasks. He does the really technical behind the scenes stuff with Evergreen, so he keeps us up and running smoothly. I also want to give a shout out to the former coordinator of the consortium, Ruth Fraser Davis. I was able to work with her for about 3 weeks before she left, and she was able to give me a crash course in everything this position involves, which was incredibly helpful, and it got me started out on the right foot. And I also want to acknowledge Equinox Open Library Initiative, our additional support vendor. I want to say thank you to our 2024 regional user group hosts, our strategic plan committee that kicked off the strategic plan process and worked with our consultant months before I was even in this position. And special thanks to Carson Block Consulting, who is our consultant working on the strategic plan. And I also want to give a shout out to our representatives on the ECDI Development Committee, Laura Bresky from Morgan County, Britta Dorsey from the consortium, Jocelyn Lewis from the Indiana State Library, and Elizabeth Hager from Porter County Public Library System. So now we can get started with the state of Evergreen, Indiana. We have a guest speaker with us today to get the meeting started. Carson Block from Carson Block Consulting is here to talk about the consortium's strategic plan process. All right, Carson, and I will turn it over to you.
Courtney, thank you so much. It's been a joy to work with you and to work with the entire steering committee and for new friends that I got to meet during the site visit. And this is our update. And as Courtney described, our strategic planning process actually straddled the transition from Ruth's leadership to Courtney's leadership. And there was a lot going on with that learning curve coming in, and so much to do, especially with a small staff. But we had such a great, or we do have such a great steering committee working hard on things like the surveys. Everybody, we actually did, as you know, 4 surveys of all of the membership as well as the non-member surveys, and so we had a lot of great information. We've already shared that with you. There's videos and reports, of course. If you need those links, just get in touch. They're readily available. During a site visit, though, that happened last month, I had several different meetings that were wonderful. One was with the full team, so it was the combination of our EI staff, state library staff, Also met separately with the EI administration staff, met with Britta and Courtney about training sorts of things, and then had one-on-one meetings, some special ones. Courtney and I, of course, we were kind of joined at the hip the whole 2 days that I was on site, talking about a lot of different things. Also, so appreciative to spend some special time with Jake, looking at the state library perspective and really exploring different issues. And also, even though this is a separate service, I met with the Info Express staff, not to do any armchair quarterbacking or anything like that in terms of sticking my nose in where it's not belong, but really to see if there's anything that we could talk through in terms of challenges with Info Express, because we know that's a hot spot and something that is been worked on so much. And I walked away so impressed with the Info Express staff, and just having a deep appreciation for the gains that everyone has been able to make. But that was just something kind of a holistic look, just looking at the whole environment. So today I want to give you a very brief summary of some of the things that kind of rose to the top, some of the trends from those meetings. First of all, as you know in the survey, overwhelmingly positive reviews of Evergreen, Indiana. And this is something that I do not want you to take for granted. And you might. I think that there's always a danger of that when you're in a system. And it's your context. It's the thing that you live with every day. You might not realize how incredibly great it is when it's working. I'm here to tell you it's incredibly great because it's working really, really well, even with such a small, dedicated staff, and that is something to be proud of. There was also a number of great suggestions for improvements, and I have to tell you, Evergreen Indiana staff and the steering committee, the first thing that good people do when they get feedback, they'll look at that negative stuff first and want to try to correct it. And that's a completely natural thing, and it's a healthy thing. But I'm here to say, let's not forget about the overwhelmingly positive responses. Some of the key challenges that we discussed on site were communication gaps between leadership and frontline staff. Sometimes messaging doesn't filter all the way through library organizations. That's to be expected. Some of the perception issues with non-member libraries. Some folks have an accurate picture. Some people do not have an accurate picture. A need for a better understanding of the value of Evergreen, Indiana among all members. And when we say the value, it's not just the warm fuzzies that I was just talking about, but and the intrinsic value, but it's also the dollar and cents value. It makes sense in this case, and it saves tons and tons and tons of money and time and resources and effort when you have a successful consortium. And that's something that we need to make sure that word gets out. And we also discussed potential funding and governance uncertainties that are just happening in our world right now, something we need to be aware of, and something actually that has impacted our planning process, keeping an eye on both essential services and essential things, as well as looking towards the future and thinking about more imaginative and more innovative things. We are going to be in that world, I think, for a while, and we're embracing that in our planning process. In terms of strategic priorities that kind of came up, we know that we want to demonstrate the economic value of the consortium, explore more self-sustainability options, maintain strong relationships with the state library, and prepare for technological shifts, especially around AI, which is popping up everywhere like whack-a-mole, it seems, these days. For areas of future focus, there's the potential for some level of staffing expansion that we'll be exploring. Technology integrations, continued resource sharing, of course, that's the number one benefit, and an adaptable governance model. When I met with the admin team meeting, we went into a little bit more detail about the communication challenges. We've never had so many forms of communication and such poor communication overall in our society. And so we know that is something that is not going to change. We have to keep retooling and make that an active effort. So that was something that we had discussed. We also talked about staffing constraints. Our small staff is stretched thin, and I think everyone understands that because everyone is taking on multiple roles. And so one of the approaches that we've been focusing on is really looking at where are the biggest gaps and how can we address that with any remediation to filling that, because you all expect good service because you get good service and you deserve good service. And we want to make sure that that's maintained into the future. We looked at different things with training and support. And again, we had a special meeting with Britta. One of the things that we wanted to mention and to make really clear is that when we look at training, there was actually a couple of different views of training. We had the historical perspective. Some of that showed up in the EI member survey, and some of that had more areas where people were asking for improvements. We also included the more current training survey feedback because Britta does that with all the training feedback, and that enhanced our picture to show the positive, like overwhelmingly positive responses that people have had to the more frequent training. So something that I wanted to point out and recognize, this is just part of doing surveys, but something that I think is important because this is such an active effort on Evergreen, Indiana's behalf to make sure that things are rolling. Another two areas, one is a technical assessment. Consider implementing a tech assessment for libraries to understand their capabilities and support needs a little bit better, just a way for libraries to be a little bit more self-aware of their internal resources, how they connect to Evergreen Indiana, what things are actually Evergreen Indiana related, where EI can respond and help, and what things actually belong to the library in terms of their responsibilities. Overall, our goal is to create a more efficient, supportive, and responsive service for member libraries while managing limited resources, because we are going to be walking that line for a while, and that's okay. We can do it. Our next steps, of course, this feedback helps mold things. I am in the process of creating a list of strategic directions, and strategic directions are all of the things that we've learned to date summarized probably in about, I would say, I'm guessing we're going to have a dozen or more bullets altogether that kind of encapsulate things. And I'll be sharing that with the EI staff and with the steering team. And from those strategic directions, we will then determine the goals for the plan, the goals and the activities for the strategic plan. So in terms of time frame, I know it always seems like in particular it takes a little bit longer to do things than we would like, but I would like to get those strategic directions list by the end of the month, if not sooner, to staff, and then of course we'll reconvene the steering group, and then about a month after that we should be able to at least finish the draft of the plan, and then of course do the distribution in terms of reviews. We want to make sure that we have good reviews as Courtney directs us as we refine that and finalize the plan. So hopefully I did not go too long, Courtney. That is my update.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Carson. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Y'all have a good meeting.
Thanks. All right, so we will continue on with the state of Evergreen. We'll start off with some finances. We did end 2024 over budget. I won't go into a ton of detail, but I do want to point out why some of the categories are in red. So for those consortium digital services, that was just simply an under budget for things like Library IQ and Novelist Select. For the promotional materials and marketing category, we actually used that line to purchase the Evergreen Indiana branded Info Express transit bags. So that was something that wasn't budgeted for. And then under professional services, we used that line for supplemental migration support contracts from Equinox, which we won't be using this year. And then for the e-content line, we picked up the reference solutions database in 2024, which wasn't originally budgeted for. So all that being said, we do have very healthy reserves in our bank account, so the overages were able to be covered with no issue. I know the bright red looks scary, but we're fine. Okay, Now we're going to move on to committee highlights. I'd like to acknowledge our committee members, highlight some of the stuff that they've accomplished in 2024. So this is our executive committee. The consortium is governed by an elected 9-member executive committee. 3 members are from each class library as available in staggered terms. Our outgoing committee members are noted with a star by their name there. And some of the highlights of the executive committee for 2024, they approved membership applications from Jasonville, Owensville, Edinburgh, Ohio County, Brooke. Yes, that's it. That's a lot. They voted to work with Carson Block Consulting on a consortium strategic plan. They approved the new shared circulation policy as recommended by the Patron Services Committee. They reviewed the Evergreen Indiana bylaws and suggested updates, which we will get to later in the meeting. They approved the cataloging policy update as recommended by the cataloging committee, and they approved the creation of an Aspen subcommittee. Terms for the cataloging committee are a little bit different. Members serve at their convenience, which means there are no term limits. So members are basically just on the committee until they don't want to be anymore. And this is our cataloging committee. Some things they accomplished in 2024. They recommended updates to the cataloging policy covering training, terminology, and the removal of old procedural information. They added or modified various cataloging procedures to keep up with the changes in MARC and RDA, including 588 source of description, 33X field information for playaways, new genre form heading for dyslexia-friendly books. This is our Patron Services Committee. The Patron Services Committee can have up to 13 voting members, and members serve a 3-year term. Our outgoing committee members are noted with a star next to their name. The Patron Services Committee formed a work group to recommend and overhauling the shared circulation policy to the Executive Committee. Updated circulation procedures guide to include exceptions to allow duplicate accounts. Approve updated overdue notice language to reflect procedures, and recommended 2 new circ modifiers for Executive Committee approval: high demand and high demand limited. And the e-content committee operates like the cataloging committee, so members serve at their convenience. There are no term limits. So members are on the committee until they don't want to be anymore. And this is our e-content committee. And our committee advised the consortium and maintained e-resources that were made available to membership. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Britta to talk about training.
Almost forgot I was muted. So first, I want to thank you all for a good year of training. We did see, can you move to the next slide, Courtney? Thank you. We did see a decrease in number of live webinars held, so a total of 67. We did see an increase of attendees by 45%, and hopefully, webinar-wise, an increase in quality. Evergreen, Indiana provided over 2,000 LEUs to those attendees, including those received using the Evergreen Indiana Learn Moodle website. As for the uploaded recordings on our YouTube channel, we saw almost 6,000 views. So you all are definitely using those recordings to catch up and see any maybe changes or just refresh what you may already know. So I appreciate your participation, and I'm really hoping for a similar year this year. So thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Great, thanks, Britta. In 2024, we added 2 new members to the consortium. Morrison Reeves was our 130th. Library. They are a Class A library in East Central Indiana in Wayne County. Their service population is about 50,000, and they're a member of the Indiana Digital Library Consortium. They launched on April 30th, 2024. Fun fact, my first day was on their launch date, so that was fun. Our second library last year launched was our 131st library in the consortium, and that was the Owensville Carnegie Public Library. They are a Class C library in Southwest Indiana in Gibson County with a 2020 service population of 4,000, and they are also a member of the Indiana Digital Library Consortium. They launched on August 27th. So some development things that have happened in the last year. So some direct development, we did upgrade to Evergreen 3.13.5 in November of last year. And then we had some ECDI development. In case you don't know, ECDI is the Evergreen Collaborative Development Initiative. And it's basically an organization where different Evergreen consortiums can join together and pool their money to fund large-scale development projects for Evergreen. And we are a member of the ECDI. So there's ongoing development with the acquisitions model that's paid for by ECDI. For the RESTful API project, the first part just recently finished testing and was released. For multi-factor authentication, that was released in 3.14. That was a project that was funded by ECDI, CW Mars, and NC Cardinal. The record buckets and administration project was released in 3.14, and started alerts and nodes and item templates was funded by ECDI, CW Mars, and Noble. Okay, here comes the fun part when we get to look at all the statistics. These are both links here if you want to take a really deep dive into the numbers. That top one is the monthly statistics. You can find all that information there. Britta, can you put that in the, I forgot to give you that link. Can you put that in the chat? Oh, I guess it's in the slides, so you're fine. Sorry. Okay, so this is kind of where we are. Thanks, Britta. We have 131 public library systems in our consortium, and that is 196 locations, including bookmobiles. 70 of the 92 Indiana counties have at least one Evergreen Indiana member library, and we have 134 library organizations. So we have one school corporation, one correctional facility, and then the Indiana State Library. We have a service population of 1.6 million individuals. Our active cardholders are up from last year. We have 313,000. And our unique borrowers are about 200,000, up from last year as well. We have about 8.1 million holdings available for patron use last year. Our total circulations processed was 8.4 million. And we added 85,000 holdings in last year. We have 171 fully fine-free libraries. That's up from 69 libraries last year. One juvenile fine-free library and 4 fine-free bookmobiles. We have 90 auto-renewal libraries, which is up from 87 last year. Okay, so this is who transited the most stuff last year. This is purely quantitative. This is transits in and out, whether it belongs to the library or doesn't. This is just lots and lots of transits. But then we have this one here, which is the same thing, but it's per capita. So for Oxford, for every person in the library service area, 2.29 items were transited by that library. This is the difference between transits going out and transits going in at the library. So for example, yes, go Oxford, Marie says in the in the chat. So for example, there's Dublin there, number 14. So for every one transit that came into their library, they sent out 2.29 books. And these are our circulation leaders. That's a lot of circulations. But our next one, this is circulations per person in their service area. So Oxford's right up there at the top. Don't get too oh, what's the word? I can't think of it. Never mind. Competitive. I remembered. I know it's hard. But all of these, for every library, all of these numbers can be found or calculated from that first link at the beginning of the statistics page. Last year's Evergreen International Conference was in April. The keynote speaker was Richard Littlehour, and it was fully online. The executive committee was able to fulfill 21 full scholarships. I was one of the people who got a scholarship, and it was a great conference. ECDI was a champion level sponsor last year. This year's Evergreen International Conference is in May. There is a theme of emerging trends, and our keynote will be Nick Tansey. It's again going to be online. There was a form for scholarships for this conference as well this year, and that will go to the EC next week, and they will decide on those then. We had regional user groups last year. We do regional user groups on the years we don't have a conference. So this year, Jeremy and Britta and I drove all around the state, visiting lots and lots of library workers, which is really exciting. We learned a lot of stuff. I think we learned some really great stuff that we started to put into practice. But in September, we were in Park County, Jackson County, Pike County, and in Richmond and Orison Reeves. And in October, we were in Porter County, Noble County, and Danville. I'm glad to hear that somebody liked our user groups. We had a lot of fun. We were in the car a lot. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Britta for Aspen update. You're muted.
I will never be able to remember that in anything else. 2024 saw the beginning of the Aspen Discovery Layer in Evergreen, Indiana. It soft launched on March 17th. Not everyone, of course, started right on the 17th. It's been kind of a gradual growth throughout the year. And while not all of our libraries are using it as of today, there's plenty of time. It's there. We have seen some really good numbers. I think they're really good numbers from March of last year to the end of. By the end of the year, we had approximately 45 catalogs being actively used with just over 24,600 user logins. Out of those logins, which are not unique, there were over 7,500 users who placed at least one hold. For member libraries with Overdrive, we had 1,235 users with over 2,000 checkouts directly from the Aspen catalog and 1,450 one holds placed. Libraries that subscribed to Hoopla in 2024 saw 219 users check out 330 items directly in Aspen. We continue to grow, we continue to adapt. And I am very excited to see the changes coming Aspen, the software, as well as what we will be able to do for the consortium and for your your own library's catalogs. So I'm very excited. And the new committee that has been formed is excited too.
Thank you, Britta. Another big project for your admin team here is our membership and migrations. We have 8 approved applications for migrations to Evergreen, and Wells County there at the bottom, they have their application in, and it will go to the executive committee next week. After that's approved, we will have 9 libraries ready to migrate. So Ohio County, we are working on them right now. They are all set to go live on June 10th of this year. Brooke, we are working with them to get some things scheduled. They're going to be launched on September 3rd. Jasonville is currently rebarcoding their collection, so their date is kind of up in the air. Delphi, we're looking at the beginning of next year, probably around March. The Edinburgh Library is cataloging their materials in, so their date is kind of up in the air as well. Crawfordsville, we are looking at fall of next year. And then Jasper County, Remington, and Wells County, we haven't mapped out their timeline quite yet, but we're definitely working into 2027 at this point. So if you have any libraries around you that have whispers about Evergreen, let them know there's a line. We're going as fast as we can. All right, now it is time to move on to our new business. Just a little bit of information about the committee nominees. Each Evergreen, Indiana member library is a council member, and it gets a vote with the library director. A paper ballot will be mailed by the end of business on Friday, April 11th. Each library will get to select their choices, and then those ballots need to be returned to me either by scan and email or mail by May 15th. So this is our slate of candidates. If you want more information, that is a link there on the slide. We do have 3 candidates for executive committee, 10 for patron services committee, 3 for cataloging committee, and 1 for e-content committee. So I'm going to turn it over to Brandy now for the council to approve the slate. You're muted, Brandy.
There we go. In front of us, we have the slate of candidates. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Nicholas Stephan,
We ha-
Garrett Public Library.
I have a motion from Nicholas Stephan. Do I have a second?
I second Stephanie from Pike County.
I have a second from Stephanie. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Perfect. We have approval of the slate of candidates.
Great. And now our second order of business here. The executive committee put together some proposed bylaw updates. They put together a working group that was Nick Stephan from Garrett, Stephanie Rollins from Pike County, and Winnie Logan from Newcastle. They came up with some updates to the bylaws, and then that went before the whole EC. And then this is not all of the changes with the bylaws, but these are kind of the big things that are here on the screen. One of the big ones, well, for me, is that committee nomination ballots will be sent electronically, so those could be emailed to you instead of mailed by Friday. At least 2 executive committee meetings a year will be held in person. All others will be held virtually because we've been holding them in person every month. And the non-voting executive committee members were updated to be more relevant to our consortium. Britta put in the chat the proposed bylaw updates. So Brandy, I'll turn it over to you for council approval.
Okay. So we have the proposed bylaw updates. If anyone would like to make a motion to approve those, they may do so at any time.
I'll make that motion, Stephanie from Pike County.
We have a motion from Stephanie. Whenever anyone is ready, they may second that motion if they choose to.
I'll second the motion. Cheryl Solers from Westfield, Washington Public Library.
Cheryl has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have votes
Aye.
coming in the chat.
Aye. Aye.
All have been aye in the chat.
It appears like we have ayes. Do we have any nays? The motion passes.
I'm so
The
happy that
bylaws.
I don't have to mail 131 ballots by Friday. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're moving on to announcements. Again, the committee election ballot submission closes Thursday, May 15th. I will email those to you probably tomorrow. The executive committee meets Tuesday, April 15th at Pike County Public Library. The Evergreen International Conference is May 12th through 15th. Again, if you did fill out a form to get a scholarship to the international conference, the EC will be looking at those next week, and then you will be getting an email from me. And then our 2024 Evergreen Indiana Conference will be August 15th at the Indiana State Library. We'll probably have a couple sessions hybrid as well. If you can't make it down to the state library, you might have a session or two that you can watch from your library. All right. Thank you for a
Okay.
great year. Does anybody have any questions for any of the admin team? I'll take that as a no.
Okay, then we will adjourn this meeting at 2:44 p.m.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
It was
you.
great to see y'all. Bye.